Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the UES Endeavour, watching the crystalline spires of the Jirex capital ship glitter against the backdrop of deep space. Even after 6 months of diplomatic missions, the sight still took her breath away. The Jirex vessels were works of art, their bioorganic hulls shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that served as both decoration and communication. "Admiral, the Jirex High Council is ready to receive our delegation," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, his voice tight with tension. Chen adjusted her formal uniform, making sure the insignia of United Earth Command caught the light properly. "Very well. Let's hope they're in a more receptive mood than last time." The human delegation made their way through the connecting bridge between the ships. The Jirex environment was barely breathable for humans, but pride demanded they wear only minimal breathing assistance rather than full environmental suits. It was a calculated risk, one that had earned them at least a modicum of respect from the notoriously judgmental aliens. High Counselor Vexes waited for them in the Grand Chamber, his crystalline exoskeleton refracting light in complex patterns that Chen had learned to recognize as barely concealed disdain. Behind him, the rest of the Jirex Council perched on their elevated platforms, their own crystalline forms creating a dazzling display of light and color. "Welcome, humans," Vex's voice resonated through the chamber, translated by their neural interfaces. "We trust you've had sufficient time to consider our generous offer." Chen stepped forward, her boots clicking against the living crystal floor. "High Counselor, the United Earth Government has carefully reviewed your proposal for humanity to join the Confederation as a protectorate species. We must respectfully decline." A ripple of crystalline chimes, their equivalent of laughter, echoed through the chamber. Vex's external lattice shifted to a deeper blue, a sign of amusement. "Decline? Perhaps you misunderstand your position. Your species has barely mastered rudimentary faster-than-light travel. Your technology is centuries behind even our most primitive member races." "With respect," Chen countered, "humanity has achieved in 50 years what took other species centuries. Our rate of advancement only proves your reckless nature." Vexes interrupted. "You fumble with forces you barely understand, like children playing with fusion reactors. The Confederation has guided the development of countless species for over 10,000 years. We know what is best." Dr. James Morrison, Earth's leading archaeologist, stepped forward. "If I may, High Counselor, our studies of other civilizations suggest that different paths of development can—" "Ah yes," another council member chimed in, their crystals flashing with mockery, "the human obsession with digging through the past. Tell us, do you still believe you'll find evidence of some great ancient human empire among the stars?" Chen felt her jaw tighten but maintained her diplomatic composure. "We seek only to understand our place in the galaxy. Humanity has always been driven to explore, to question, to learn. And that is precisely why you need guidance," Vex declared. "Your species lacks the patience for proper development. Already you spread across nearby systems, establishing colonies, building outposts. Without our oversight, you will inevitably bring chaos to the carefully ordered galaxy we have maintained for millennia." "We have not come to bring chaos," Chen responded firmly. "We come seeking friendship, exchange of knowledge." The crystalline laughter grew louder. Vex's form shifted to deep purple, a color Chen had never seen him display before. "Exchange? What could your infant species possibly teach us? We had mastered quantum engineering while your ancestors were still huddling in caves. Our language itself is mathematically perfect, evolved over thousands of years, while you still communicate with crude approximations of meaning." Chen felt a familiar fire building in her chest, the same determination that had driven humanity to the stars despite all obstacles. "Perhaps we cannot match your technological achievements yet, High Counselor, but humanity brings something else to the galaxy: creativity, adaptability. We see solutions where others see only problems." "A charming sentiment," Vex dismissed. "But the galaxy has no need for such primitive perspectives. The Confederation's offer will remain open for 1 standard year. Accept your place as a protectorate, or you will find the galaxy a very unwelcoming place for independent human ventures. The threat was clear. Chen looked around the chamber, noting the positions of the Jurex guard crystals pulsing with barely contained energy. This meeting was over, but something in Vex's dismissal of human language nagged at her thoughts. She had seen something in the preliminary archaeological reports from the outer colonies, something about linguistic patterns. "We will convey your message to Earth," Chen said carefully. "But know this, humanity did not come this far by accepting arbitrary limitations on our potential. We are not children to be guided, but equals to be welcomed." As the human delegation departed, Chen could hear the crystalline laughter following them through the corridors. Let them laugh, she thought. Humanity had proven doubters wrong before. And she had a feeling Dr. Morrison's archaeological team on Kepler 186 might be about to discover something that would wipe the smug superiority from the Jurex's crystalline faces. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy would come not from their future potential, but from their ancient past. Dr. James Morrison wiped sweat from his brow as he studied the peculiar markings on the ruins of Kepler 186f. The alien sun cast a reddish glow across the ancient stone, making the embedded crystalline patterns shimmer with an inner light that shouldn't have been possible after so many millennia. Dr. Morrison, Sarah Evans, his lead research assistant, called out from deeper within the excavation. "You need to see this immediately." He made his way carefully through the winding passages they'd uncovered over the past 3 months. The site had initially appeared to be yet another abandoned outpost of some long-lost civilization, but something about these ruins was different. The architecture didn't match any known species' construction methods, not even the Jurex. Sarah stood in a newly cleared chamber, her handheld scanner projecting a holographic overlay onto a vast wall covered in intricate patterns. "Look at these readings," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. "The crystalline matrices are still active. They're responding to something." Morrison stepped closer, adjusting his own scanner. The pattern seemed to pulse with a faint rhythm, like a sleeping heart waiting to wake. "These symbols, they're not random decorations. This is language, but not Jurex script," Sarah pointed out. "And definitely not from any other Confederation species we've encountered. But sir, there's something familiar about them. Run a comparative analysis against the Earth Linguistics database." Morrison entered the commands, more to humor her than anything else. The ruins were at least 20,000 years old, long before humanity had achieved spaceflight. His scanner chimed, and his jaw dropped. "This can't be right," he muttered, running the analysis again. "Sarah, are you seeing this?" The holographic display showed a 78% pattern match with Sanskrit and smaller but significant correlations with other ancient Earth languages. Morrison's mind raced with implications. Get Admiral Chen on a secure channel immediately. And Sarah, not a word of this to our Jurex observers. Within hours, Admiral Chen's hologram flickered to life in the chamber, her expression grave as she reviewed their findings. "You're certain about this, James?" "The evidence is undeniable," Morrison replied, sending another batch of data. "These ruins predate the Jurex Confederation by several thousand years. The language patterns show clear evolutionary links to both ancient human languages and pre-Confederation Jurex dialects." Sarah discovered something else too. He gestured to his assistant, who activated a series of crystalline panels embedded in the chamber walls. The entire room hummed to life, holographic images filling the air around them. "It's some kind of historical archive," Sarah explained. "We've only decoded a fraction of it, but what we're seeing, it changes everything we thought we knew about humanity's origins and our place in the galaxy." The holograms showed star maps, technological schematics, and most importantly, images of beings that combined features of both humans and the crystalline Jurex. "They were our common ancestors," Morrison said quietly. an advanced civilization that seeded both Earth and the Jerax homeworld with life, guiding our parallel evolution. The Jerax Council will never accept this, Chen warned. Their entire society is built on the belief that they evolved independently, achieving their crystalline form through natural progression. They don't have to accept it, Morrison replied, his eyes gleaming with discovery. The proof is literally written in their own crystal matrix. Every Jerax bears the same basic genetic patterns we're seeing in these archives. They've just forgotten how to read them. A sound at the chamber entrance made them all freeze. Vizal, their Jerax observer, stood in the doorway, their crystalline form shifting through colors of shock and disbelief. You can read the ancient scripts?" Sal asked, moving closer to examine the holograms. "Our scholars have studied ruins like these for centuries, but the patterns never responded to us this way." Sarah stepped forward, her scanner displaying the comparative analysis. "Because you were only looking at them as Jerax writing. The patterns require both human and Jerax neural frequencies to fully activate. We weren't meant to decode them alone." Vizal's crystal lattice pulsed with colors Morrison had never seen before. The High Council must be informed of this. "Must they?" Chen's hologram asked quietly. "Your people's reaction to humanity has made it clear how they handle information that challenges their worldview. Perhaps there are others among your kind who would be more open to the truth." The young Jerax observer stood silent for a long moment, their crystal matrix shifting through deep, thoughtful patterns. Finally, they spoke. "There is a growing movement among our younger generations. Scientists, scholars who question the rigid traditions of the Confederation. They would want to know of this." Morrison shared a look with Chen. This was the moment where everything could change, or where their discovery could be buried forever under the weight of Jerax pride. "Show me more," Vizal said finally, moving to study the ancient text. "Show me how to read the words of our shared ancestors." As they worked late into the night, none of them noticed the small drone hovering outside the ruins, transmitting everything back to the High Council. The storm that would shake the foundations of two civilizations was about to break. High above, in the darkness of space, the ancient ruins began to pulse with stronger light, as if responding to the long-awaited reunion of their children's children. The true test of both species was about to begin. The Grand Archive of the Jerax Confederation blazed with unusual activity, its crystalline walls reflecting the agitation of its occupants. High Counselor Vex stood before a council of emergency summoned elders, their forms collectively shifting through shades of deep concern as they watched the transmitted footage from Kepler 186. "This human deception cannot be allowed to spread," Vex declared, his crystal matrix pulsing with barely contained rage. "They manipulate ancient ruins to support their ridiculous claims of connection to our species." But senior archaeologist Zix, youngest ever to hold the position, moved forward. "With respect, High Counselor, I've analyzed the data myself. The humans didn't manipulate anything. The patterns they've discovered match our most ancient texts, texts we ourselves have never fully decoded." "Impossible," another elder chimed, their crystalline form resonating with dismissal. "Our language evolved naturally over millennia of cultural refinement." "Did it?" A new voice rang through the chamber. Rella, head of the Youth Science Coalition, stepped into the light. Her crystal matrix displayed the controversial new patterns that younger Jerax had begun adopting. Flowing, organic forms that seemed to bridge the gap between crystalline rigidity and human fluidity. "We've begun testing the human theories," Rella continued, projecting her own findings into the shared space. "When we combine their linguistic algorithms with our quantum crystalline matrices, previously dormant patterns in our oldest ruins begin to activate. They're responding to both human and Jerax neural frequencies simultaneously." The chamber erupted in conflicting harmonics as the elders argued. Vex raised his primary crystal cluster for silence. "These humans have barely mastered space travel. The idea that they could understand our ancient technologies. Is it understanding or remembering?" Zix interrupted. Look at these comparative analyses. The mathematical structures underlying ancient Sanskrit and our pre-Confederation dialects share a 93% correlation. That's not coincidence. That's design. Meanwhile, in a secure laboratory beneath the human embassy on the Jurex homeworld, Dr. Morrison worked alongside a growing team of young Jurex scientists. Sarah Evans stood at a central console, coordinating data streams from research sites across known space. Another activation sequence confirmed on Proxima, she announced. That's the 12th site showing response to combined human-Jurex neural patterns. Morrison nodded, studying the holographic model taking shape before them. Each activated site added new layers to their understanding of the ancient civilization that had shaped both species. They didn't just leave us messages, he mused. They left us a roadmap to find each other again. A young Jurex researcher, Kix, approached with new data crystals. We've discovered something remarkable in our own genetic archives. The crystalline structures that give our species its form. They're not just physical adaptations. They're data storage systems, passed down through generations. Living libraries, Morrison breathed. Your entire species has been carrying the answers all along, waiting for the right key to unlock them. The laboratory's communication crystal chimed. Admiral Chen's hologram appeared, her expression grave. The High Council is calling for an immediate halt to all joint research. They're claiming these discoveries threaten the cultural purity of the Confederation. They can't stop this, Rella declared, joining the transmission. The younger generations are already sharing the findings through our quantum networks. Events are happening faster than the Council can suppress them. Indeed, across Jurex space, something unprecedented was occurring. Young Jurex had begun spontaneously developing new crystal patterns, their matrices reorganizing to reflect frequencies that hadn't been seen in millennia. Some claimed to be experiencing flashes of ancestral memory, glimpses of a time when their species walked side by side with beings that looked remarkably human. In the High Council chamber, the crisis reached a breaking point. We've received reports of mass gatherings at ancient sites throughout Confederation space, and aid reported. Both humans and Jurex are participating in what they're calling resonance ceremonies. Vex watched in growing horror as holographic feeds showed the gatherings. Humans and young Jurex standing together, their combined neural patterns awakening long-dormant technologies. The ancient ruins were responding, each activation adding new pieces to a puzzle that threatened everything the Confederation had built. Enough, he thundered. I want these sites quarantined. All human researchers are to be expelled from Confederation space immediately. The penalty for any Jurex found collaborating with them will be what, High Counselor? Rella challenged, stepping into the chamber with a delegation of both human and Jurex scientists. Will you crystallize an entire generation? Our bodies are already changing, adapting to frequencies we were always meant to share with our human cousins. She gestured, and every member of her delegation focused their thoughts in harmony. The chamber's ancient crystal walls began to pulse with light, responding to the combined neural patterns in ways that hadn't been seen for 20,000 years. This is who we were always meant to be, Rella said softly. Not separate, not superior, but complementary parts of something greater. The real question, High Counselor, is whether you will help us remember, or force us to choose between our past and our future. As if in answer, the crystalline archives that formed the foundation of the Confederation capital began to shine with new light, responding to the awakening of its children's shared heritage. The time of forgetting was coming to an end. The central plaza of the Confederation capital had never seen anything like this. Thousands of young Jurex gathered, their crystalline forms pulsing in synchronized patterns that matched the heartbeats of the humans standing among them. Above them, the ancient spires of the Hall of Wisdom glowed with increasingly bright resonance. Inside the hall, High Counselor Vex faced a decision that would reshape the galaxy. The emergency session of the full council had devolved into chaos as more evidence of the human connection emerged. The ancient archives are clear. Dr. Morrison projected the latest findings. Your crystalline form wasn't a natural evolution. It was a gift, designed to store the collective knowledge of both our species until we were ready to understand it. Lies. Elder Kraz's crystal matrix flared with dangerous energy. Guards, remove these humans and their sympathizers. But the guards didn't move. Their own crystal matrices had begun to shift, displaying the new patterns that had spread through the younger generation. One stepped forward, removing his ceremonial armor. "No," he said simply. "We've seen the truth in our own bodies. Every activation sequence, every resonance ceremony, awakens more of what was hidden within us." Admiral Chen, watching via quantum projection, nodded to Morrison. "Show them what you found in the deeper archives." The chamber's holographic systems activated, displaying images that made even the most hardline council members pause. They showed the original seeding of both Earth and the Jurex homeworld, the careful genetic engineering that gave humans their adaptability and Jurex their crystalline data storage capabilities. Our ancestors weren't just one species trying to preserve themselves, Sarah Evans explained, standing beside Rella. They were an alliance of organic and crystalline beings who found a way to transcend their differences. They seeded us on different worlds, knowing that separation would force each trait to develop fully. Outside, the crowd had begun to sing, human voices harmonizing with Jurex resonance frequencies. The ancient buildings responded, their crystalline structures pulsing in sync with the combined neural patterns. "Listen to them," Rella urged. "Really listen. The harmonics they're creating. They match exactly with the frequencies encoded in our oldest songs, songs we could never fully reproduce alone." Vex stood silent, his crystal matrix cycling through colors of confusion and doubt. A young Jurex scientist rushed in, their form blazing with excitement. "High Counselor, the Medical Academy reports hundreds of cases of spontaneous genetic activation. The dormant sequences in our crystal matrices, they're not just storing data, they're evolving, adapting to allow direct neural communication with humans." The chamber erupted again, but this time the tone was different. Fear mixed with wonder as the implications became clear. Their entire civilization stood on the brink of transformation. "You still have a choice." Admiral Chen's hologram addressed Vex directly. "But you don't have much time. The changes are accelerating. Your people are remembering who they were meant to be, with or without your approval." Vex turned to Elder Kraz and his hardline supporters. "If what they say is true, if our very form was designed for this reunion, then all our claims of natural superiority are based on a fundamental misunderstanding of our own history," Rella finished. "But that doesn't diminish who we are. It reveals who we could become." A deep resonance suddenly shook the hall. The crowds outside had begun to move in perfect synchronization, human and Jurex neural patterns aligning in ways that hadn't been seen for 20,000 years. The ancient buildings responded, revealing long-hidden chambers and databases. "The archive temple is activating," someone shouted. "All of them. Every ancient site in Confederation space is lighting up." Through his quantum link, Morrison watched in awe as sites across the galaxy awakened. Each activation added new pieces to the puzzle, revealing more about the civilization that had shaped both species. The patterns were undeniable now, human creativity and adaptability complementing Jurex structure and precision, each trait carefully designed to reach its full potential in isolation before being reunited. Vex stepped to the chamber's center, his crystal matrix shifting to a pattern none had seen before, one that somehow combined the rigid geometry of traditional Jurex forms with the flowing adaptability of the new generation. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "it is time for the Confederation to remember its true purpose. Not to preserve what we thought we were, but to become what we were always meant to be." The chamber's crystals pulsed with new energy as more Jurex began to shift their patterns, accepting rather than fighting the changes awakening within them. Outside, the first successful telepathic links between humans and Jurex were being reported, as dormant neural pathways activated in both species. But in the shadows of the council chamber, Elder Kraz and his supporters slipped away, their crystal matrices dark with purpose. The transformation of their civilization would not go unchallenged. The true test of both species' ability to overcome their differences still lay ahead. The ancient archive temple blazed with light as human and Jurex neural patterns synchronized in perfect harmony. But not everyone welcomed the dawn of this new era. Elder Kraz and his loyalists had enacted their desperate plan, activating forgotten defense systems within the Confederation's oldest structures. "The security grid is powering up," Sarah Evans called out. Her neural link with the young Jurex scientist kicks, allowing them to process information at unprecedented speeds. "They're trying to trigger a resonance cascade that would crystallize every ancient site in Confederation space." Dr. Morrison worked frantically with Rella at the temple's central control matrix. "If those sites crystallize, we'll lose access to all the ancestral knowledge and the ability to complete the transformation that's already begun in both our species." Through their newly awakened telepathic connection, Admiral Chen coordinated with High Counselor Vex. "The Hardliners are desperate," she communicated. "They'd rather destroy our shared heritage than accept change." "Not just heritage," Vex replied, his crystal matrix pulsing with urgency. "The resonance cascade would permanently damage the neural evolution occurring in our younger generation. They'd be trapped between forms, unable to fully access either their traditional abilities or their new potential." Outside the temple, the combined human Jurex crowd had begun to move with singular purpose. Their synchronized neural patterns created interference waves that fought against the cascade's building energy. In the temple's restricted archives, Elder Kraz and his supporters worked to amplify the cascade. "Better to preserve our purity in crystal than allow our species to be corrupted by human influence," he declared. But they hadn't counted on what 20,000 years of parallel evolution had created. As the cascade built toward critical levels, something remarkable happened. The humans and Jurex working together didn't just resist the energy. They transformed it. "Look at these readings," Sarah exclaimed. "The neural patterns, they're not just synchronizing, they're evolving, creating something entirely new." Through the telepathic network that now linked both species, a solution emerged. Not from any one mind, but from the collective knowledge and creativity of both races working as one. "Our ancestors didn't just leave us a heritage to remember," Morrison realized, watching the patterns unfold. "They left us a challenge to overcome. Only by truly working together, by combining human adaptability with Jurex precision, could we survive this moment." In the center of the temple, humans and Jurex joined hands and crystal matrices. Their combined neural energy formed patterns that matched exactly with the temple's oldest recordings, the same patterns their ancient ancestors had used to seed both their worlds. The cascade's energy reached its peak, but instead of crystallizing the ancient sites, it was caught in the new neural network. The temple's walls began to pulse with previously hidden symbols, revealing the final message left by their ancestors. "To our children's children, if you are reading this, you have learned to see past the illusion of separation. The galaxy's greatest strength lies not in the purity of one form, but in the harmony of many. Your differences were designed to create something greater than either could achieve alone." Elder Kraz watched in disbelief as his own crystal matrix began to respond to the human neural patterns around him. The change he had fought so hard against wasn't corruption, it was completion. The transformation spread across Confederation space. Ancient sites didn't crystallize. They awakened, responding to the combined neural patterns of both species. The knowledge and capabilities hidden within Jurex crystal matrices for millennia became accessible, while humans discovered new depths to their neural plasticity. In the temple's central chamber, Admiral Chen and High Counselor Vex stood together before the assembled representatives of both species. The old barriers of superiority and suspicion had quite literally dissolved, replaced by a deep understanding of their shared destiny. For too long, Vex addressed the gathering, his crystal matrix displaying the new hybrid patterns. "We thought ourselves the pinnacle of evolution. We forgot that true advancement comes not from isolation, but from connection. Our ancestors knew that each of us had gifts to develop. Chen continued. Human creativity and adaptability, Jirek structure and precision. Apart, we were incomplete. Together, she gestured, and the temple responded to their combined neural pattern, displaying a map of the galaxy filled with points of light. We can access abilities and knowledge beyond what either species imagined. The Hardliners' attempted cascade had ironically accelerated the very transformation they had fought against. Across Confederation space, humans and Jireks discovered they could share not just thoughts, but experiences, memories, and capabilities. The crystalline data storage capacity of the Jireks combined with human neural adaptability created something entirely new, a true synthesis of both species' strengths. As the ancient sites continued to activate, revealing more of their shared heritage, the question was no longer whether change would come, but how they would use their newfound capabilities. The galaxy watched in wonder as two species once divided by presumed superiority demonstrated what they could achieve together. In the end, it wasn't human determination alone that had transformed the galaxy, nor was it Jirek's technological superiority. It was the willingness of both species to remember not just who they had been, but to imagine who they could become, together.